Ken's standing by here, but I got one quick shot, and that is this. There is a Mississippi father and daughter, Ken, who are making national and international news because of their Christmas plans this year. Would you like to hear about that, sir?
I would love to.
His name is Pierce Vaughn. Pierce is a flight attendant. Her name is her name, not Pierce is a her. Pierce is a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. And Delta Airlines scheduled her to work on Christmas Eve and also on Christmas Day for the past several years. And it's one of those things that she's committed, and if they need her, she is there. God bless Pierce. But Daddy ain't happy. Daddy is a Mississippi daddy, and he's not happy. His name is Hal. And Hal said, well, we got to figure this thing out, and we got to fix it. So he figured he couldn't spend the holiday with his daughter at home, so he's going to spend it in the sky. So he booked tickets on the flights she was working on just to be with her. Well, this year they'll get to spend it at home on the ground in Mississippi because Pierce is not scheduled to work. He was so grateful to have the chance to spend quality time with both my parents in South Mississippi. So for the years that apparently he's been doing this, he's been booking flights. So she's off this year, and hope it turns out that they get into an argument. She's probably not going to do it again. But Pierce said, for Hal, I'm happy to be in the air or on the ground. It doesn't matter. So I'm hoping that she's not disappointed, and I doubt very seriously. How you doing, my man?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Good to see you as well.
This is the first time we've been on face to face here, and it is good to have you in the studio. This avian flu thing, and I thought about you when I heard it because people always go back to the domesticated part of chickens and turkeys and things like that. But this is a serious thing that wipes out. Is it I don't know what the percentage of mortality is when they get this virus.
It's pretty high, and it depends on which particular strain. There are two major strains of it's H5N1, and there's a first clade strain and a clade 2 strain, and it depends on which strain they get. One is a highly pathogenic strain. It's HPAI, highly pathogenic avian influenza. The other one is a low pathogenic avian influenza. There's a good bit that we don't know about it. There's a good bit that we do. We first identified it well before COVID. It's been known of back in the 1960s, 1970s. The big thing about it is it's not affecting songbirds as much as it is poultry. They're seeing some cause now for concern in North America for the first time in waterfowl populations, which just a few days ago I wasn't even aware of until you asked me to be on the show. And when I did a little homework, found that they're now having some trouble in barnacle geese and gannets and some other shorebirds, seabirds and shorebirds.
What does that tell you, though? Because they're probably starting their migration south. Did they have this way up north?
It's been seen up north. In fact, the first research that I was able to locate on it was from the Netherlands, and it was a strain was actually created by a physician, microbiologist in the lab in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I can't remember the name of the institute right now, but
it wasn't Wuhan, was it?
No, it wasn't Wuhan. But I will say this. And there is some cause for concern in that, and I try to take politics out of things, Paul. I know everybody has a different slant on things.
I hope you're not going to say the words gain of function here.
No. We have known about avian influenza, specifically highly pathogenic avian influenza in Southeast Asia, specifically in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand. Right now, since 2003, 655 people have died. 455 people have died out of 803 cases. So a little bit over 60% mortality rate in humans that catch this virus. Fortunately, the percentage of people that catch the virus is extremely low. It does not transmit well from birds to humans. But we've seen it in that
through
portion.
Touch, or is that through consumption?
Respiratory. It's not known completely how it's transferred from the birds to humans. It is a completely respiratory disease among the birds, and it's completely respiratory from human to human, although that has only been seen once or twice.
Do you know what the symptoms are as far as humans are? Humans?
For humans, they would be much like any other influenza. There has been one case in the United States that happened in Colorado, and that particular individual showed very few symptoms at all. Why the relationship between deaths and mortality in Southeast Asia, specifically in Vietnam and Thailand, Cambodia, Laos,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
why they are having a greater potential for death probably has to do with the variance in clades.
We don't know if you cook this, you can't cook it out of the meat, or do we know?
Well, there are a couple of things to remember here. One, a virus is not a living particle to begin with. It's not alive. You can't kill a virus because it's not alive to begin with. The destruction of the protein casing that surrounds the DNA on a virus seems to me, well, they don't have their own DNA. They utilize the DNA of others. It seems to me that, and this is speculation on my part, that fully cooking food probably does break down that protein sheath. I mean, it breaks down muscle as we eat it, so it stands to reason that that would be the case as well. Although I am not an epidemiologist nor a microbiologist, I simply love the birds.
Can you notice anything, whether it's from chickens to ducks, and duck season is on, as you all know.
Duck season's on.
Can you tell if a animal has this ailment?
Not at first glance. Your typical Mississippi hunter can't. I certainly can't. It would take somebody in a biological laboratory, and in fact, even those fellows will tell you that a vast number of these cases, the first symptom is the bird dies. That's the first symptom they see. So there's no warning ahead of time with the poultry.
So if you see a goose on the ground, you shoot it, and certainly if you've made noise and walk up on a goose and it's not flying, that might be the reason. I would think one that is quite a bit along with this virus is not going to be flying high.
It's not going to be flying high. I would speculate that it's not going to be a great possibility, but it is a possibility.
You did say something that, as far as songbirds are concerned, is that because they're still well north, or is
no,
and they haven't started their migratory?
No,
or south, I should say.
The mutant variants of H5N1, the highly pathogenic avian influenza, are specifically right now in populations of poultry, and that's historically where we have found them. Populations of poultry, we're starting to see them some in shorebirds and seabirds. Your things like gannets and auklets, things that most general people don't even consider knowledge of.
It's a good idea not to be fooling around and fondling a snipe at this particular time.
Right, absolutely right. I've not seen any written reports on snipe at all. But if you go snipe hunting, then you do need to know that is a slight possibility.
That is exactly right, whether you believe it or not. When somebody says you want to go snipe hunting, it's there. So
it's good hunting, too.
While I've got you on, though, I've got to ask you this. You talk about songbirds, and people don't realize this. The family of bird watchers out there is larger than most sports, nationwide and worldwide.
People are shocked when I tell them the latest statistic that I found, and that is that there are 18 million hunters in the United States. 18 million. Ask how many bird watchers there are, and most people will tell you a number less than 1 million. And the number is 70 million in the U.S. alone.
In the U.S. alone. And I think
more
a lot
than
of those
3
are
times.
also hunters, because one of the things I realized early on, when you go out into the woods, the more you know. Instead of saying that's just a tree and that's just a bird, if you know them, and that's just an insect, the more you know, the more you will enjoy the outdoors.
Well, the more you know, the more you'll know.
And that's exactly right. And the colors become brighter and more different colors, and it's just not a black and white world. And that's why education is so very important. I want to ask you when we come back, and you'll love this, your love of all of these windmills out there and what they're doing to songbirds. When we return, I saw the grimace on his face. Back with the Birdman, Ken Hackman. You scheduled anytime soon as far as Saturday, or is it just an open book so far?
I was just on a few weeks ago.
I remember I caught that one. It was very, very good.
Well,
let me do this one on C Spire Test Line. Good morning, Paul. This is a Boomerang Bob in Tupelo. Trying to find somebody to rescue domestic ducks from Ballard Park. Somebody dropped them off and they can't fly south for the winter. Severe cold coming up, and they need a warm shelter. Well, I think the ducks can take extremely cold, can they not?
Yes, they'll take care of themselves.
Bob, I wouldn't worry about the cold because they're built for this. Two pure white ducks that stay together. So well, maybe they've fallen in love for Christmas time. You know, these ducks do get together in spring, and they come out with all kinds of shapes and all kinds of colors. So,
especially when those muscovies are mixed in.
Yeah, and I remember being at a campsite with was it African hawkers or something? They have the weird bill as far as these geese, and they were just at 2 hours before daylight. You couldn't be in your camper because if one thing sets them off, and I think that was in Tupelo at the one of the parks there that we stayed when the kids were young. A story that I just thought about is because we have these things called life birds, and explain what life birds are.
A life bird is a bird that you've never seen before, and you're going out to find it for the first time.
Yeah.
Some of us even have nemesis birds. I myself have been chasing snowy owls for some 35 plus years, and I still have yet to see a snowy owl, and no. I have now traveled to states all over the eastern half of the U.S., even Florida. My strangest story is when I was scheduled to be on stage every night for a week here in the Madison area, and one was seen in Vicksburg, and I couldn't get away to go see it. And the day that I was able to get away, it left. So
mine is any type of hummingbird other than a ruby throat, and I've sent pictures out of. I'm about 14 feeders up and literally hundreds and hundreds, and I've never seen anything but a ruby throat at the feeders.
Are you watching your feeders right now?
I have one out, and yes, it's and I'm watching it, but I don't remember ever getting anything in the wintertime, and I change it about once a week just to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
And keep doing that, by the way.
Interesting story. We'll do it. Interesting story about a guy named Billy Joe Cross. I don't know if you ever crossroads with Billy Joe, who was former wildlife guy at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. But I was at and it just reminded me about this. I was at a wildlife dinner with him and his lovely wife, and sitting next to him, and all of a sudden before the program started, he said, "Excuse me," and he jumped up and he said, "I left something in my car I wanted you to see." So he gets up, and the wife and I were puzzled exactly what he's doing. And he comes back, reaches in his pocket in a Ziploc bag, hands me something in his palm, and it was a painted bunny.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's as close as I've ever been to one, and it was absolutely a beautiful bird. I've had a couple in the backyards over the years, just 2 times, and fleeting. But he said he and his class go out to one of the television station's towers. These birds hit the guy wires at night.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what your thoughts are, not only of that, because that's been happening for a long time, but do you think that all of these windmills across the country are affecting the bird population?
To the tune of about 1.2 million a year. The turbines are causing massive amounts of deaths. There's a great deal of work being put into studying how to negate that. The American Bird Conservancy, which is a group that I've worked with before, doing some research over in east central Mississippi on sustainable forestry for those that raise timber. Mm-hmm. They have been trying to work for several years now in trying to come up with a method to allow for the Clean Electricity Initiative to reduce the number of bird kills they're getting. They've gone up 86% since 2003. Since 2012. Since 2012.
It's not only songbirds, is it?
No, hawks, your accipiters, There are places, these wind turbines work best along mountain ridges and areas where the wind is funneled, and that's exactly where migratory raptors have a tendency to move, is along those mountain ridges, picking up thermals as they rise off the ridge.
I read one story where there was a lot of mangled and just like a Vegematic on even some eagles.
I've not seen that on eagles. I have seen eagles that have come down with the avian flu since we talked about that.
Wow.
There are 2 cases of that in the U.S.
Do you find it's hard to find people that will speak out for you as an organization, like the Sierra Club and people like that?
As far as birds?
As far as the turbines and finding a solution to this, because
No.
you don't hear much about this. If it was anything else, if it was a spotted frog or something, they'd be all over it. But this is one of those things that they can't talk about because it's energy.
Well, if you look at those periodicals that carry their information, they are concerned about it, and some of those eco-oriented magazines are producing articles pointing out what a serious issue this is. I think the conflict with a lot of them on that side of the aisle is how to figure out a way to have your cake and eat it too. And I'm not sure what that answer is going to be.
Would it be lighting or sound, some type of sound or some type of lighting?
I would think lighting would be an issue because some birds, not all birds, some birds utilize light, and we're still learning so much about this, Paul. Yeah. Some birds are utilizing flow charts, sky charts, and star charts and whatnot. My mind went to flow charts. Exam week was last week, so forgive me. The movement of birds, some people have tied it to landmarks on the ground. Some have tied it to a number of things. I've personally found a Virginia rail at the Thalia Hall, which had hit the windows on Thalia Hall during migration. So we're faced with so many different factors, and we don't even understand all of those factors yet.
I don't doubt that the Earth always has been and always will have climate change. I was watching something on YouTube as far as the Ice Age not too long ago, and exactly why that happened, how it happened, and ice. Even through the northern third of the United States of America was just nothing but glaciers.
Absolutely.
But what happened in the tilt, and I doubt very seriously, I tried to find out how many Chevrolet SUVs were operating on the roads back then and could not. So I believe it is a change in the tilt of the Earth itself, and that warming and cooling has happened for a long time. But do you believe it's affecting the bird migration now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are seeing hummingbirds. I used to jokingly say you could set your calendar by the date that the hummingbirds would arrive on the coast every year, March 4th, March 4th, March 4th, and we're seeing them earlier now. And the problem that's causing is that they're moving now earlier than they have been in the past, but the plants that they feed on, the nectar-producing plants that they feed on when they get here, have not bloomed yet because they bloom based on photoperiod, the particular number of hours of sunlight in a day. And if the birds are arriving before the plant that they feed on is even available to them, then you have food issues.
Philip said in Germany the windmills are decimating predatory birds, hawks, eagles, falcons, and owls, because the ground beneath the windmill is generally cleared or used for agriculture.
That's true.
It attracts mice, rabbits, and other prey. So, boy, that's attracting them into their death hole, so to speak. How long do hummingbirds stick around after you see them first come in?
In the spring, typically
in the fall, in the migratory, in September, October.
I'm glad you asked that question. That's one of the most interesting things about hummingbird migration that I have. Folks call me every year. I'll get the phone calls. I've got this hummingbird in my yard, and he sits there every day and keeps an eye and won't let any of the hummingbirds feed. What can I do about him? Well, one thing is he's not sitting there every day. The bird that you see in your yard during fall migration, once 4th of July comes, the bird that's in your yard today is not the same bird that's in your yard tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize, but he's sitting in the same place. Well, a good perch for one bird is a good perch for another bird. And if you've got a good vantage point, you're going to utilize it.
How long do they stick around? A couple of hours, a couple of days? Or a couple of, do they leave during the nighttime?
Some of them move daily. Some of them move nightly. Most hummingbirds, I think, move during the day, but they will feed for a while, and then they take off first thing in the
One
morning.
final question. Let me see if I can get it in here. What's the farthest migration on any tags that you've seen?
For hummers?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I saw one from Alaska to Florida.
Oh, yeah. We've seen some
That's not
from
uncommon, is it?
No, Alaska down into Central America.
Yeah.
But we have
ultimately, yes.
We have rufous hummingbirds here in Mississippi every year that come from Alaska.
That's amazing. It is always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so very much.
Well,
Enjoy
thank
your
you, Paul.
time off before school bell rings again.
I'm going birding.
Why am I not surprised? Ken Hackman, we know him as the Birdman, and when he's filling in for Garden Mama, you got to catch him. Thank you, man. Appreciate it back.
Thanks,
With more
Paul.